Good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to thank you once again for taking the time to join us today for our live webinar in joint collaboration with our partner HP Software. The focus for our webinar this afternoon is on mobile app testing. We will be discussing some of the key topics, such as mobile lifecycle, the challenges, and UFT mobile, and many more. I am very proud to be joined by a few of my colleagues today, Mr. Antoine Aymer, which is our Worldwide Product Marketing Lead Mobility Solutions, and from HP, and also Ed Hill, which is our Application Business Leader as well from HP Software. And Peter J. Shave is our Global Alliance Director from Test House. I'll quickly run through the agenda with you guys. We'll do a welcome and test out overview by my colleague Peter, and the bulk of the presentation will be done by Antoine Aymer from HP on mobile testing, and we will have Q&A sessions towards the end of the presentation. Before I'll pass you over to my colleague Peter, please feel free to type in your questions now or during the presentation on your Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen. We will be able to answer your questions towards the end of the presentation. Also, do use the full screen at the top of your page if you need to. And again, without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague Peter Shave. Peter?
Thank you very much, Mel. Welcome to the latest in our series of HP-themed webinars, which I trust you will find both informative and thought-provoking. I am very pleased today to be joined by Antoine Aymer and Ed Hill from HP. But before we get into the main presentation from them, for those of you who haven't met Test House before, just a little overview of who we are and where we fit in the grand scheme of things. The company was formed in 2000. Our focus is purely on IT risk mitigation, so everything we do is around performance, functionality, and security. We're headquartered in London, and we have additional full-service centers in Madrid, Dubai, and Trivandrum in India. We also have overseas sales operations in the US and the Middle East. In terms of our relationship with HP, we've been partners for over 10 years, initially with Mercury Interactive, if you remember them, HP Software since 2006, and we achieved Gold Partner status in 2009. Initially, our strapline was we were the independent experts in software testing, but we then realized that something like 90% of the engagements we had where tools were involved, it was around HP Software, so we weren't quite as independent as we thought we were. Our strapline now is IT risk reduction through best practice, and we believe that HP have continued to invest in their tool set and continue to be the market leader. In terms of mobile, we're finding it to be the biggest growth area that we're currently experiencing. And without wishing to go on too much about Test House, I'm sure you want to hear what HP have to say. So, Antoine, over to you, sir.
All right, thanks, Peter. All right, so my role in HP is to drive this, mobile testing strategy, and how we move forward and how we try to help our customers. All right, so. Initially, the way we actually drive these sort of webinars is to spend half an hour on the market, testing challenges, and what are the best way to actually build test automation in a proper way, right? If needed, if some of you ask, we could drive in an additional session a proper demo on that. So I just lost connection, so guys, I will ask you to move forward. Can you move to the next slide, please? Mobile revolution slide. All right, so this is what I believe is it's a passionate marketplace. What's happening to us? All of us obviously have been impacted by mobility and how huge it is as a driving force. For the very first time in history, we have the options, all of us, of being always on, always connected. So remember, even a few years ago, even, today in some of our enterprises, we need to adapt to a system, right? Now it's different. It's all about the users. It's all about us. And all these new devices, these new platforms are generating new ways of consuming data, of consuming info. It enables us to be more productive at work, at home, wherever we are. And this is a very interesting figure that I want to share here on the screen with you guys. By 2016, mobile app projects will outnumber traditional app projects by 4 to 1. So I think we can ask ourselves a decent question. What does that mean to us, right? Well, we need to have the right staffing, the right development skills, the implementation of new methodologies, but also, and probably which is the most important point, is the right strategy at the corporate level. We've seen too many mobile apps being developed and tested in a vacuum with no proper long-term strategy by customers and even by smaller and larger organizations. Next slide, please. But we all know that the development of applications actually faces an outstanding challenge. And as you can see here, that's the pace of the technology market. And so we know that mobile technology is delivered in a much shorter cycle time than the traditional computing market. Well, personally, I upgrade OS version, as soon as one is becoming available, right? And we know iOS 7 is just around the corner here. And Samsung is, releasing, Android is releasing, Google is releasing new Android version, very frequently, and sometimes it also depends on where you're based on. And same goes with upgrading applications, right? And on top of it, we sometimes have more than one mobile phone. We have one a business phone and we have a personal smartphone, and we upgrade as new technology is released, right? From 2007 to 2012, we witnessed 420 Android phones. That's crazy. 20 different OS versions. And you have to remember as well that in 2013, additional OS tried to gain momentum. Sailfish, Ubuntu, Tizen, and Firefox OS. So I think the question is how can we build an app that works for all? 3 versions of iOS also got released earlier this year, if you remember, and I think we all, looking forward to getting iOS 7. And all these combinations really increases the matrix and obviously the coverage headache that the testers are suffering from. So this slide really demonstrates the complexity of mobile testing strategy and the device coverage. So we're actually also looking at a new device family penetrating the mobile market called phablets. So already had different segments of screen resolution, and now we have a new segment between 5-inch and 7-inch. So this really adds, to the complexity of this dynamic and really fragmented market. Next slide, please. All right, and this one is very important for you to understand. You might have heard about, the World Quality Report, which is a report driven by HP and a few other partners. And there's a very interesting trend on quality practices, and there's a couple of pages on, quality practices for mobile. Ultimately, this points out that there's a huge gap between market expectations and organizations' mobile strategy. According to the latest version of the report, 2/3 of organizations, 2/3, don't currently test mobile apps. It sounds like crazy, but this is what is reality today. So many companies in verticals such as healthcare, banking, transport, airlines, have already invested a lot in developing mobile apps, but sometimes fail to build a solid mobile testing strategy on the long term. One could think that it's all about brand reputations, but it's also about risk, long-term risk, governance, and compliance with regulations. So clearly, most enterprises have fallen behind the mobile curve and are really unable to address the new challenges that it poses. Next slide, please. So if you look at the bigger picture, so I think all of us here realize that mobility introduces new diverse challenges to multiple IT departments. So to address many of these challenges, we have introduced at HP the following mobile app lifecycle that you see on the screen here. So we define it as, how can I put it the best way, a complete solution set that helps provide end-to-end management of enterprise apps, whether it's apps developed for your employees or apps developed for your consumers. So a closer look at it, shows we have solutions for every single stage of the mobilizing of application value chain. Design and build, best practices to design and build apps, optimize apps, test the app, distribute, monitor, and measure. Next slide, please. So, of course, today it's all about how we can help our customers optimize their mobile app testing practices. So we all have huge expectations with regard to the quality of the apps we are using on our mobile handset. Our laptop made us very productive, but mobile devices make us even more productive because it impacts us at every moment of our life. Well, obviously, at least it should be. I think the point is here that quality is absolutely critical to mobile app, but it's not always there on time, as the World Quality Report stated just a slide before. So now let's probably investigate, how we can help optimize the user's experience. Next slide, please. First impressions count. I think we all know that. Social media and the marketplace have really transformed the way we purchase and we consume the content. Every app, including the big ones, Apple, Amazon, eBay, but sometimes also the local grocery store, has a dedicated space for feedback. So whatever we say, whatever we consume, whatever our feedback is, we highly influence, our neighbors' behavior. And obviously, quality applications are much better positioned to drive incremental business. There was a survey done by an analyst recently that stated that a typical user gets his first impression of a mobile app within the first 30 to 45 seconds, from a usability and functionality perspective. So it is really critical, to build a quality app, even in the first steps of the users. But what is very interesting is that at the same time, end users are really still the ones pointing out defects, even before they're actually identified by the development team. So an overwhelming number of issues, obviously, are being remediated only after an application has been deployed. So this, as I was saying before, equates to loss of revenue, but also has an impact on brand equity. What's interesting, I don't know if you noticed it, but if you go on the Apple Store, on Google Play, you even have an option to filter and get the end user's experience per device or per version of the mobile app. So you can now have a look at critical applications delivered by very large companies that fail to perform, fail to install, or fail to let you log in, which is probably outrageous for most of our end users and consumers. The next one, please. So obviously we have multiple variations of devices and platforms in terms of bandwidth, latencies, screen sizes, and obviously mobile testing gets really complex. But as I was saying before, it's really sometimes very poorly addressed and even worse, ignored. So if you are responsible for developing and obviously testing your mobile apps, you should ask yourself probably three questions. The first one is, does it work? Meaning, does it really work across all my devices and across all the platform versions that I'm targeting? Why does it crash? Why does it action my pinch? Another big one is, does it perform? And performance, we know, is probably one of the biggest issue that consumers face. If it's too slow, obviously, my users, my consumers, my customers will move away. We run away from apps and we use someone else's app. But where does the latency come from? So from the device? Is that from the network? Is that from the back end? It's not that easy to understand. But also, is it secure? Are my credentials securely stored on my device? What's going to happen if my device gets stolen? Is the app executing safely? So it's not it looks like it's very easy, but it's much more complex than probably security and functional testing and performance testing on traditional computing system. Next one, please. So all of us, I guess, are very familiar with variations of such a login screen, right? It looks very simple, right? You enter your credentials and start using the app. Again, I would say it's very simple. However, from a testing perspective, this could be a very complex screen to test. Next one, please. So now, in red, just have a look at the amount of pitfalls and potential danger which could impact the functionality and the security of the app. But on top of it, what matters most probably is the user's experience. So an app poorly built and poorly tested could impact the device vitals, such as draining the battery, or could allow data leakage, for instance. So on top of it, many of you are familiar with the great momentum HTML5 has on the marketplace, and of course, this is very attractive to hackers trying to take advantage of this rather, let's say, new technology and lack of testing around it. So it's, all in all, it's not as simple as it looks, and this will probably even get worse as I move forward. Next one, please. So who's in the middle of it, right? We have either the developer or the testers, depending, which methodology you have adopted for development, whether it's Agile, whether it's Waterfall. We cannot see both on the marketplace, although Agile seems to be predominant. First, there's a great affinity between mobile development and Agile, as I was just saying. And testers or developers have to support it. Agile obviously is very short, has very short cycle iteration, which provides fast feedback on product features, promote a customer-centric approach, and obviously enable continuous user experience design. In Agile, as you probably know, the entire team is responsible for quality, not just testers, not just developers, but all of us. Many of the testing activities are obviously being performed much earlier in the cycle in order to get feedback faster. The second point here that you can see, there's a need to test your app on multiple devices. It is absolutely impossible to conduct tests on all devices on the marketplace. Well, that's a given, and I hope everyone on the call realized that. Some analysts obviously advise to start by selecting just a few devices based on your targeted consumers, where they're based, and what is their behavior with regard to the technology. I think the most important objective here is to make sure that the app delivers remarkable experience to the end users. Next one, please. Now let's probably have this discussion in the context of building mobile apps in Agile, right? And this is critical before we actually dive in key recommendations for mobile testing. Some of the biggest frustration Agile team have is when they actually run up against, what I call the command and control thinking, when bureaucracy from corporate get in the way, when they also perceive themselves as being slowed down by, let's say, waterfall or non-agile part of the organization. So these type of problems have actually risen to the trends like DevOps, or even applying agile techniques to discipline outside of software development like marketing. One of the other challenges that we are seeing from our customers and that agile team face is really striking the right balance between velocity and quality. So obviously one of the big things that agile promotes is velocity. So essentially it's the rate at which the functionality are being delivered. If we spend too much focus on velocity, this could have an intended effect. And as we often see, especially with teams that are new to Agile, there's a sort of an inclination to sacrifice quality in the name of velocity. And this results, as we know, following what I was saying on the marketplace, this results in a buildup of defects and probably actually more time performing fixes and maintenance, which paradoxically actually ends up slowing the entire process down. So in order to balance this equation and really satisfy the end users, I think we are all here on this phone saying, how can we best work to satisfy the end user? It's very important, and not to say critical, to put in place the right testing strategy with both manual and automated testing, right? And you will have to perform manual testing for integration testing. That's pretty obvious. However, when you look at the technology and the multiplier factor combination of OS and devices, the mobile handset characteristics makes manual testing very difficult. And this multiplier factor actually exacerbates the limitation of manual testing. So the validation of the quality of frequent builds that I hope you're having here will require some degree of automation, right? One analyst, Forrester, actually really encouraged mobile developers and testers to even invest into continuous testing, continuous integrations after a couple of sprints when you first develop your apps. So it is impossible to conduct tests on all devices in the marketplace. Obviously, we recommend, as with analysts, to start by selecting just a few devices. But then question is how to follow the trend in device turnover and new technology, right? And this is what's going to happen also for, with the new iPhone 5S and 5C. do you really want to own all the devices you test on? Is it really core to manage, allocate, track, secure, and reface the devices? How to provide fast feedback on product features, promote a customer-centric approach, and enable continuous user experience design if you do it on your own mobile phone. So next slide, please. UFT Mobile. So many of you probably are familiar with HP UFT, right? HP UFT Mobile here is the most complete solution for cross-platform automated testing. It's a native mobile testing extensions to UFT. It allows our customers to use the tool they know. They've been knowing and using for ages. It was used to be called QTP, Quick Test Professional, now Unified Functional Testing. And now we extend our customers' experience to mobile devices. So it will allow you to utilize existing tests, assets, business logic, and again extend it to mobile testing. There's no need for you to learn a new environment, to code and support an integration, or to consolidate reports coming from different tools. So obviously lots of attention and additional technical skills will ultimately consume the most sensitive assets that you have as a development and testing team. It is time. You don't have time to learn a new tool. UFT Mobile actually also allows you to connect to real mobile devices that are sitting in the cloud in one of the data centers and allow you to perform real test automation with the ability to identify objects, which I will cover in the next slide, manipulate the objects, and perform, well, let's say, almost any operations on the mobile devices as if you were having them in your hands. So what does that mean? It means that you can focus on planning your tests while letting someone else manage the devices for you. Negotiate contracts with carriers, clean them, and switch them when needed. And obviously, most of our customers have testing team and development teams which are sitting across the globe, not necessarily just in the same building. And needless to say, because this is a web-based, SaaS-based offering and product, all the testing teams can share the same devices and run concurrent testing at the same time. And because it's a native extension, if you already have HP LM and Quality Center, this will allow you to have full backend integrations with your mobile testing scripts. Next one, please. So I wanted to provide you with a picture. What actually is the real physical mobile devices that we have. A picture of the small picture of the data center. So as you can see here, we provide access to a variety of handsets and tablets and phablets, as I added, including HTC, Apple, Nokia, Motorola, Samsung, Sony Ericsson, BlackBerry, Palm, and many of them, right? And we can provide a full list of supported devices to anyone who's asking. But the point is we have hundreds of additional handsets that are being added to the system following our customer request. I think the point is here that we follow the trend. So as soon as there's a new mobile or an OS version released, we have the ability to help you run testing on those devices. So if you don't see the handset you're looking for, well, customers with a subscription plan can request a new handset. Handsets are residing in various data centers across the world, US, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Spain, South Africa, India, and various data centers in APJ as well. So the thing you can do here, so testers can deploy their app on the device of choice, and test it again as if they were holding the handset in your hands. The service is, as I was saying, web-based, is accessible to the internet, and also allows video streaming. It means that all the testing are video recorded, so you can easily find and push it to a developer for better finding of the issue. After the test is completed, the developer can log back to the same handset and very easily recreate the issue. Right? Our customers can get dedicated cradles, dedicated devices for their sole usage, right? And so they're not sharing it with customers. We also have this very same solution for manual testing. So if you're not ready yet to invest into automation because you're not ready yet, or because automation sounds a little bit scary, or because you don't have the budget to spend into a private cloud, we also have the ability to give you access to what we call a public cloud, where devices are shared, right? There's a little bit less in terms of security, obviously, because devices are shared, but it allows you to ramp up very easily and maybe understand, the pitfalls of mobile testing and easily ramp up to automation. The next one. So the work quality report, as I was mentioning a bit earlier, mentions that it's absolutely essential to put the right methodology in place for testing, right? And particularly for mobile testing automation. So as you can see here, most development and testing teams forget to leverage the experience they have built over the years. And the thing is, traditional automation rules still apply. Setting up an automated testing practice for mobile can really rely on existing practices. So that's a thing that some customers forget. And the reason is often IT is not leading mobile strategy. It's sometimes sales or marketing or a line of business who has no understanding on the long-term impact on their choice. So however, the team, the development team and testing teams, need to take into consideration the mobile specific aspects. They need to define the relevant tests that are going to be executing against all devices and platforms. The tests here need to be usually quite easy to automate, and this is very, very, very important. And remember the logging screen that we saw earlier. So the cost effectiveness and the ROI around testing will actually count more when you define and automate only the relevant test cases. Don't automate everything, only automate relevant test cases. Also, additional point, your team must be very intimate with mobile objects, and we are going to cover what mobile objects are in the next couple of slides. In mobile, you have the notions of visual objects and OS-level objects. And if you talk about web app, obviously we have the DOM objects, which are the native web objects. You will need to understand, as a dev or test team, how and when to manipulate these objects to make scripts more robust and usable across all devices and platforms. But also, and that's the last point, think about future maintenance. Also make script more robust and usable across new devices and operating systems. Understanding objects is critical to limit the time spent on maintaining the maintenance of scripts. You cannot build and test an app in a vacuum, and this is where most of our customers are today. Don't just build your app or your testing practices just based on today's available technology. Think about the past. Some users may be stuck because of budget, because of choice, with past technology. Think about the present, but also think about the future. So automation is definitely a cost-effective approach, since it will accelerate the quality report on multiple combinations at once. Now, let's talk a little bit about mobile objects. Since on the marketplace there are multiple vendors with different approach, and not all of them actually provide what we call a hybrid approach. So there's the object level analysis and the visual analysis, right, called OCR. These are two commonly used methods to identify and work with objects in mobile apps. Obviously, each one of them, as you can see on the screen, has pros and cons. Your scripting and testing methodology must leverage both types of objects, not just one. And this is what I call the hybrid object approach. Let's have an example here. I know it's a little bit small, but I think it's relevant, and we can share these the slides afterwards. In the right upper corner, you can see a web app running on a Safari browser and an Android one. If you use the visual analysis method only on the edit box of the iPhone, right, you would only get the text for how much would A. How much would A? In other words, what you see is what you get. But if you use the object level analysis method, which is on the upper area in the screen, you would get the full text in the object. So the right method depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to get the image of the text, which is being displayed on the edit box, you will use the OCR method. If you want to get the full string, and with that all properties of the objects, you will need to use the OS level analysis. So I think the main point in this slide that I want to make is that you will need both approaches to build a robust test across platform, devices, and OS. Next one, please. So you can see here, you have two different versions. This is the same app, and this is the commonly available app for US-based citizens. And they are very different, right? And the same stories here applies to objects. The text strings that you can see on the images are different between platforms. From an automation perspective, this could be a huge challenge. Again here, you will need to apply both methods. Remember the OS level and the OCR method. You will need to check that all the strings are displayed as expected, and also get all the properties coming from the different objects. And this is just a small challenge, right? Now, this could be a very simple app, but remember that new applications today tend to be built with advanced functionalities such as voice injection, voice recognition, NFC, location-based, so on and so forth. So there's new very creative app being developed every day. And there's an additional thing that I want you to think about composite apps that actually rely on external services. What if your application relies on a payment service, but because the service is not available at the time you want to test, your tests fail, and you don't have the ability to provide, to have the report on an end-to-end test, right? So you will need also to include virtualization of services to achieve an end-to-end test, right? All these functionalities and services will need to be embedded in your script. Next one, please. So as we are approaching the end of the presentation, I wanted to probably end up with, let's say, 4 friendly tips, like recommendations that we've gathered from partners, with customers, from analysts. First, we encourage all our customers and partners to start using the right devices. We've talked about this one, but this is very critical. You do not have time, which is the most precious asset that you have while developing and testing mobile apps. You do not have time to perform testing across all existing combination of platforms and devices. That is very simple. So use an external vendor and use them to actually run and manage your devices for you. And obviously, we are moving into agile and continuous delivery, which makes you focus on the right things. You need to do due diligence on the technology market and also identify the most representative platforms in your targeted locations. If you're in India, you will probably focus on the most important phones over there, but not necessarily the iPhone, not necessarily the S3, not necessarily the S5. So think about, where are your consumer based? Second point, you should look back and sanity test all your previous versions, so the end user is not impacted because you did not upgrade, because the consumer did not upgrade to the latest and greatest. Right? Some people just are stuck in technology, but you have to make sure they can still use your app. Do not neglect your existing customers. We've mentioned also how essential it is to work with hybrid approach, the OS and visual analysis for more robust scripting. And finally, very important, build a script that can run across multiple platforms. And of course, you can achieve cross-platform scripts with UFT Mobile. Otherwise, I would not talk about it earlier, which, by the way, we could demonstrate to you if required. So let's go to the next slide. And this, we spend, half an hour on functional testing. And this is just one of the aspects. You have to think about performance testing, rendering on the device, performance on the cellular network, impact on the back end, and also security, right? So there are much more to it than just functional testing. And obviously the way you actually distribute your app, but also monitor and measure your apps, so that the marketplace actually can provide feedback to your development team and probably level up the priorities of user stories while you're using Agile. Right? So it's a continuous life cycle that actually never ends. Next slide, please. So some of you might be interested in joining us at Discover, which is our larger customer-facing event in Europe. And this year it's kind of in a very sunny location in Barcelona. We have major customers have already implemented a mobile testing strategy. So you probably get a good inside scoop on what they're doing. Also a deep dive into the technology. You can have one-to-one presentations of the technology, and obviously make connections with people coming from your country, right? Meet the experts, and probably also share your practices with other people. And this will occur start of December. So guys, here it is. I know we're a little bit fast. There's a lot of stuff to cover in mobile testing. This is definitely very interesting, since as I was stating all along, there's a huge gap between what most companies are delivering for apps and what we expect as end users.
Antoine, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Antoine, and thank you, Peter, for, as Antoine says, a very sort of quick presentation for you guys today on the world of mobile app testing. We are now taking questions. Please do type your questions on your individual Q&A pod. Antoine and Ed will answer your questions if they can. If not, then we'll take some of the questions offline for you guys. So please do type your questions. If you have any specific questions on mobile testing that Antoine has just mentioned to you guys during the presentation, please do so.
And obviously, as you just said, we typically have a 24-hour turnaround responding to questions. I know sometimes it's difficult to ask questions. Some questions can be very technical, so we have a variety of questions. So do not hesitate to reach out to us by email, and we'll reach out to you within the next 24 hours.
Thank you, Antoine. I've got a few questions here, either for Antoine or for Ed. The first question is, how does it work? Does it work on actual devices or via emulation? Antoine, Ed,
yeah.
Can I leave that to you?
Yeah. So this is a good question. So it's actually both. Emulators, the pros for emulators is that they're obviously sometimes a bit cheap, not to say free, and they can be available straight away for developers, right? However, emulators, do not help simulate, the real device assets like GPS, location, battery, and all this sort of stuff. So it includes emulation, but it also includes testing on real physical devices. And the way it works is that at the start of the contract, you will actually nominate a set of devices that you want to work on, and the ability to swap devices if needed in the contracts, right? This is for automation. You also have the ability to have a web access to a public cloud of real physical devices if you want to start with manual testing. So to answer the question, that's actually both emulations and access to real physical devices, which can be dedicated for your sole usage or shared among customers if manual testing is where you want to start from.
Marvelous. Thank you, Antoine. I've got a few more questions here for you. I've got another one for you. Is HP UFT Mobile have the capability to integrate with HP UFT to provide end-to-end automation test capability from mobile to desktop?
Yeah.
Is that for you, Antoine?
Yes. So that's the point. The way we've built it, it's to make it a native extension of UFT. Okay. And again, as I was saying earlier, we want to eliminate the time spent by our customers learn a new tool, right? Again, the most sensitive assets for our customers is time. They are rushing to release a mobile app to the marketplace. And we've built it so our customers do not need to learn a new code or to, let's say, manage an integration. It's a native integration with no need for customers to learn a new tool, no need to code, and no need to, let's say, extract another report because it's an additional tool.
Marvelous. Thank you, Antoine. I think another one for you. Will the UFT model work with testing websites on mobile devices rather than mobile apps?
Yes. So the idea is not just build device-specific script, right, but build platform-agnostic script, right? And the idea is that sometimes you have a web app which is also available on the laptop, on traditional computing system, but also available on a variety of combination of devices and platforms. The idea is use the same script and run it against multiple platforms. And I don't mean just mobile handset. I mean multiple platforms, including traditional computing system like laptop or PC.
Marvelous. Thank you, Antoine. Another one for you. Is there any way to performance test the mobile app?
Is there any way, sorry? Is there any way
to performance test the mobile app?
Yes, that's what we're doing is through Load Runner, we have the ability to help our customers load test mobile apps and even provide them with the ability to virtualize the network through one of our partners.
Marvelous, thank you. Another one for you, Antoine. Can you run scripts across mobile platforms, desktop and mobile, without them needing to be amended or re-recorded?
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think you mentioned about platforms. I have another question as well in here. What platforms does it cover? iOS, Android, Win, RIM?
Yes. So all BlackBerry, iOS, Android, and when I say Android, obviously there's multiple variations of Android. We support Android in Japan. We support Android I don't know any sort of Android platform that we do not support today. So even the tiniest version of Android is supported. We even had a customer the other day that wanted to do a platform on Kindle Fire, which is also supported, right? I don't know how many customers are using Kindle Fire for apps beyond Amazon apps, but this is also supported.
Marvelous. Please do keep on typing your questions at the bottom of your individual pod, so Antoine can answer a few more. Otherwise, as Antoine said, we can take some of these questions offline. Okay, I think I have another one for you, Antoine. Does HP UFT Mobile have an automation framework to accelerate test automation similar to BPT?
Yes, so you can actually use business process testing in combination to UFT mobile scripts. That you can use the same practices, right? It's divide the script into components and making the maintenance a little bit less of a pain.
Marvelous, marvelous. Thank you. I think that we'll wrap up the questions now. Again, please do keep typing your questions on your Q&A pod. We'll take some of this offline. Before we go, I thank you guys for joining us for today's session on mobile testing. The recording will be available through you by Friday, the earliest, I hope. And again, before we go, if you do have any further questions with regards to this webinar, please do let me or Peter, our contact details is on your screen right now, and we will forward the questions to Antoine and Ed this afternoon or anytime today. Hope to see you again on our next webinar session in joint partnership with HP. Peter or Antoine, do you have anything to say before we wrap up the webinar?
I've just got one thing, Mel. Antoine and I were discussing whether it was worthwhile having the physical demonstration as part of this presentation, and I think we concluded that it would have made the whole session too long and people would like to go home to go out for lunch. So I think what we'll do is we'll sit down and we'll try and plan another session where we will give a full demo on UFT Mobile. Agreed, Antoine?
That would be with utmost pleasure.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and goodbye.
Thank you.